Frontier by Maggot Moshpit, Chapter 26. Feldo sat on a soft, fancy couch, a dish of tea in front of him. Grant still hadn't said a word, and he was staring at Feldo, his tea untouched. Nan walked in, placed her tea on the coffee table, and pressed her paws together.
Now, Feldo, tell us how you escaped.
Feldo sipped his tea. It was a type of tea popular among Atrians. It reacted to the rather acidic saliva Atrians had, producing a similar effect to that of peppermint tea. It tingled in his mouth as he sought for something to say.
I didn't escape. I was captured.
He unbuttoned the top buttons of his shirt and revealed the beginnings of his scar left by Nocto's whip. Nan placed her paws over her mouth, and Grant's expression changed ever so slightly, his face becoming more relaxed.
Oh, my goodness, how terrible.
I got away, though. Met a nice group of folks, and they gave me a job on the ship called the Frontier.
He looked at Nan's face. Her eyes were misty and sympathetic. He looked over at Grant. His expression was still the same accusing glare. The only people left alive from his group of close friends. He sniffed and tried to hold back the tears welling up in his eyes.
Everyone I knew.
He shut his eyes and held back the flood of sudden emotions. Something akin to intense nostalgia filled him. Memories of people he would never make new memories with filling his head. Nan ran over and sat beside him, throwing her arm around his shoulders.
Oh, you poor dear. We know how you feel. There's never a day that goes by I don't think of Magenta. Each time I shed a tear.
I loved her so much.
Like hell,
Grant finally said, his voice dripping with malice. Prax, Lef, and Cirlia sat around the conference table. The unease in the room was palpable. Cirlia had taken both their weapons and threw them into the cockpit, far away from where they now sat. Lef's eyes were locked onto Prax's, his fingers twitching in apprehension.
So, how do you propose we rid ourselves of this, whatever it is?
Prax reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a datapad.
Unlike you, I have some influence on Atria, and right after my first experience, I did some research on this type of thing.
Cirlia felt as though her presence was being completely ignored, the other two's attention being focused completely on one another.
You mean psychic stuff?
Yeah. Every article or piece of writing I read traced back to one ancient red panda.
Well, it can't help us now. They're all dead.
Nonetheless, there was a journal, if you will, by this red panda monk who suddenly acquired the ability to predict events with startling accuracy. Sound familiar?
Lef nodded.
Well, according to the text, because of his already well-disciplined mind, he could control his powers and expand them. While for us, the premonitions are random, he could make them occur. He also describes reaching into other people's minds.
What? How is that supposed to help us? I don't want to read your mind.
Prax brought up a section of text on his datapad.
It's not like that. It's quite hard to explain, actually. I'll read his explanation. It was very well put.
He coughed and scanned the pad before beginning.
As my paws touched her head, it was as though a bridge was built between our minds. I, standing on one side, could see her there, her mind a city behind her. A great beast charged down the bridge from my side, flowing, twisting, and contorting like nothing I had ever seen. I felt weak as it left my city and crossed to hers, the strength of the past few months leaving me. Now, by strength, I assume he meant his abilities, meaning something must have passed to his sister, the one whose mind he was connected to, leaving him powerless. Anyway, he goes on. It flowed past her and around the city, searching every corner and causing her some discomfort. I might have broken the connection, but I found I could not move. It seemed to be looking for something. However, fruitless with its search, it returned across the bridge and coiled around my city, bringing with it shreds of my sister's mind. What those shreds were are irrelevant.
Lef began to understand what Prax was getting at.
So, something in his head went to hers, then back? He even described it similarly to... Wait, that would mean the waterworm thing is in my mind?
Prax smiled slightly.
Now you understand. Yes, apparently. All this monk had to do was grab onto his sister's head and concentrate, and he was able to initiate the connection. This is where my idea comes in. My guess is the thing in my head wants the thing in your head dead. And as it turns out, vice versa. All we have to do is bring them together, let them duke it out, and hopefully whatever is left won't be strong enough to bother us.
Celia couldn't believe what she was hearing.
Are you two crazy? You could both be killed. We have no idea what we're dealing with here.
I don't know, Sir Leah. I can't control myself much longer, and I don't know what else to do.
Lef, how many times have you risked your life? Too many. The gods may come to collect on your debt to them.
This is the only way.
Lef, without hesitation, pulled his chair next to Prax.
Do it then.
I really have no idea how to do this, so I'll try to copy the technique from the journal.
Hesitantly, Prax raised his arms. He glanced at the datapad, grasped Lef's head in his paws, and shut his eyes. He concentrated hard on forming a bridge, Lef doing the same. Nan gasped.
Grant, what an ugly thing to say.
Grant continued to stare at Feldo.
If you really cared about my daughter, you wouldn't have gotten her killed.
Stop this now! It isn't his fault. He couldn't have known.
Grant stood up and roared.
You knew there were pirates around, yet you still left. You took my daughter from me.
Despite sitting in his late wife's parents' house, being accused of murder, a small, dark part of himself still laughed at the situation. Who was he kidding? He knew full well that this would happen, and here it was. Nan stood up and pushed her husband in frustration.
Why would he want to do such a thing? You saw how close they were.
I noticed you said you loved her. Tell me, have your feelings changed that quickly? Have you replaced her too?
I don't want to hear another word out of you. I'm sure he hasn't.
Nan, he's right. Her name is Terry.
Nan looked at him in shock.
Well, that's your business,
She said, trying not to sound too hurt. Grant pointed an accusing finger at Feldo.
See? I knew it from the start. You just wanted Magenta because she was attractive. And when you were tired of her, you gave her to the pirates and found another. You never really loved her.
Feldo stood and walked up to Grant, stretching to his full height and staring him directly in the eye, tears streaming down his face.
You can stand there and accuse me of poor judgment, and you have the right to be mad because I found another. Hell, you can accuse me of murdering Magenta if it makes you feel better. But for you two to stand there and tell me that I never loved her, to say I replaced her, to say I wanted her dead, you're a fool. A fool who is too blinded by grief to feel the pain I feel every night when I relive.
Feldo's voice was lost in his frenzy. He growled at Grant, whose face had gone back to what it was when he answered the door.
Fuck you.
Feldo ran out the door and slammed it behind him. He ran down the path, ran up the streets, and down the dock. He stopped at the end, looking over the salty waters of Seagate. He drew a shaky breath and sat dangling his footpaws above the water, the ocean's steady rising and falling action calming him somewhat. He began talking to the waves, an audience who might not judge him.
I'm selfish. I wanted to visit them because I thought it would make him feel better. Reduce the damage I've caused.
The sea gasped at him, spraying him with water.
You're right. I can never undo what I did.
What did you do?
For a split second, Feldo thought the ocean had responded to his statement, but it was Grant, lumbering up behind him. He sat down beside Feldo, folding his paws together. He sat like that for a long time. Laughter and music could be heard from the town square, but it soon died down as the sun sank beneath the waves. It was little under a half hour before Grant spoke again, his rage from earlier subsiding significantly.
What did you do?
Feldo looked up.
What did I do? You knew full well when you were screaming at me.
He grumbled, then pulled out a knife and began absent-mindedly trimming his claws.
Forgive an old fool's outburst. I didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, you showing up here was a shock to be sure. Forgive me. You came to visit us, and it brought back bad memories.
Faldo laughed dryly.
Yeah, sure did.
I guess I did blame you. I still do, probably. I should be more angry at the pirates.
He chuckled.
We had a huge party when they caught Nocto.
Still,
Faldo said, determined to find a reason Grant should hate him.
there's Terry.
When I was a kid, you might have been thrown out of town for remarrying. But now you get all these, what did they call them? Social justice warriors? Yeah. Anyway, they're raising all these good points about why it should be acceptable. I'm just an old-fashioned, sad man. I shouldn't judge what's in another man's heart.
Faldo smiled slightly.
Well, we are married. Just mates at this point. She kinda made me stop blaming myself. I was on a real masochistic kick for a while there. And I haven't replaced Magenta. She's still in there.
Grant slapped Faldo on the back, almost knocking him over the edge into the water.
Faldo, I never told you this. But I'm proud to call you my son-in-law.
Thanks, Dad.
At first, Sir Leah kept the same level of caution while Lef and Prax were locked together in their strange embrace. However, after the first half-hour passed without a single thing occurring, she just watched, wondering if it was some elaborate prank.
How long...
Shh! She sighed and shrugged. Prax's arms did not tire, and he began to feel something in the back of his mind grow stronger.
Lef, I think it's...
Suddenly, Lef drew a sharp breath and tensed up.
It's working.
They both grunted and spasmed, causing Sir Leah to jump up and run to their side. She grabbed onto Lef and tried to pull him, but he pushed her away.
No, don't break connection.
First, Lef passed out, slumping onto the table. Prax's face twitched erratically.
This isn't supposed to happen?
He slumped on top of Lef's numb form. Sir Leah stood, arms outstretched, but unable to do anything. She sat and watched their lifeless forms, observing their shallow breathing.
I hope this works.
Lef was back in the mist. He could remember everything they were trying to do, and he wondered if this was what his brain looked like.
Man, I'm boring.
A sound behind him made him jump and whirl around. A giant vortex had formed in the air. It was black, swirling, and tinged green.
Whoa!
The worm appeared, flowed around him once, and formed in front of him.
What have you done?
The worm said, as a statement and not a question. Lef grinned with his clay mouth and pointed his stubby arm at the worm.
I'm getting rid of the thing in Prax's head, and you're going to help me do it.
What? You have brought it here?
Lef crossed his arm stumps.
Yes, I did.
This manifestation does not have enough power to face the Prax entity. You have jeopardized everything.
You were the one who didn't tell me shit! Maybe if you would explain who the hell you are and what you want, I wouldn't have to do this.
The vortex made a ghastly noise, like the bubbling of mud, and another clay figure flew in, landing without any impact. It stood, and Lef could see it. It had vague, dark spots and points on its head that could be ears.
Prax, is that you?
Lef? Why do you look like I'm seeing you through a filthy magnifying glass?
Your physical appearance is irrelevant. This was learned.
Prax waddled up to the water form.
Hey, you look like my...
The vortex made another sound, this time more frightening. It was the sound of a far-off clap of thunder, but it never ended, and it was getting closer. Prax and Lef stepped back from the vortex and covered their faces with their arms. Lef realized he could perceive the vortex, even though he was covering the spot where his eyes should be. The sound grew too much to bear, and out from the vortex shot a jet of black water, glossy and oily. The thing oozed to the ground and formed into a worm.
I have found you,
it said.
Indeed.
I would have eradicated you from the lesser planes, but this one is strong. No matter. It served my needs. You will now atone for the crimes you have committed.
The clear worm began swirling around, trying to flank the oily water, but it flowed around at the same rate until Prax and Lef were surrounded by a swirling mix of the two.
I have committed no crimes. The continuum is corrupt. It must be corrected.
Left tried to cough, but he had no mouth anymore. He spoke anyway.
Hey, you guys, can't we just talk this out a bit?
Suddenly, the clear water changed directions and collided with the oily water, causing an immense wave of pressure that pushed Lef and Prax back.
Hey, Lef, I think we should help.
They watched as the two swirled around each other, occasionally stabbing and splashing at the other.
Yeah, but which one?
The one in your head.
I couldn't agree more.
They began an awkward shuffle towards the side that had the most oily water. It took no notice of them, even when Lef dealt it a blow with his arm.
It's no use, Prax. We're going to have to— Ah!
Suddenly, there was a bright flash of light, and the black oily water shot with a blood-curdling screech into the vortex. Lef pumped what would have been his fist.
Yes, you did it!
It is not defeated. It was sent back to Prex.
Prax looked around in dismay.
What? It's got my body? Hey, wait for me!
Prax waddled to the vortex and hopped in.
It is too late for Prax. The Prax entity has taken over its body now. You must kill it now. And do not attempt another bridge.
Aye, aye, Captain.
He opened his eyes and sat up. Prax was there, his body still limp. Lef jumped back and grabbed Cirlia's paw.
We have to get out of here and get the weapons now.
What are you... Holy crap!
Prax's body began to twitch, and black tendrils rose from his head. The room dropped a few degrees and darkened significantly. The Prax thing stood without leaning forward or moving its arms. It turned to face the two petrified Atrians and opened its eyes. Prax's red eyes were now pitch black, without so much as a reflection on the seemingly endless surface. Cirlia and Lef began backing up, out the door.
Prax?
Its mouth opened and a long sigh escaped. It made noises like it was trying to speak, but it didn't know how to use a mouth. Suddenly, it thrashed both of Prax's arms in a wide arc, straight into the table. The table exploded in a shower of splinters and black powder. Lef and Cirlia didn't stick around long enough to see what else would happen, running down the hall towards the cockpit.
Lef, what the hell happened?
I may have made it worse. That's not Prax for all intents and purposes.
Cirlia's keen mind recognized the circumstances.
Lef, it's like that robot, remember?
They dashed into the empty cockpit. Lef watched the door as Cirlia grabbed the pistols.
Yeah, but then we exploded the thing's head. I am not exploding Prax's head as much as I want to.
Cirlia tossed Lef Prax's gun and set her own for the lowest setting.
It seems to absorb the energy from my pistol, and it would probably do the same thing to plasma.
What? Plasma?
Cirlia gestured at Prax's gun.
It's a plasma pistol.
Oh, I knew that.
They looked down the hall, but there was no movement. Yet.
Thank God no one's left aboard.
Cirlia wasn't listening. She was desperately trying to think of something to do.
You remember when I shot the ceiling? It seems like it could be harmed with physical objects.
Physical objects, you say? Like, for example, a piece of supersonic metal?
The lumbering form of the Prax thing could now be seen down the hall. Cirlia sighed.
Too late to get your gun now, Lef.
He smacked himself in the head.
Ooh, I've got it! A plan! Cirlia, it'll probably go after me only, right? Okay, I'll lead it into that cargo bay, then I want you to seal the bulkhead and start venting the atmosphere slowly. The pressure will drag it out of Prax, and at the same time, you go to my cabin and grab the rifle. When it's out, I'll give the signal, and you stop the atmosphere drain and repressurize the room, come in, shoot the thing, and we'll be done with it.
Prax was now halfway towards them.
How do you know the pressure will work?
Lef tapped his head.
I have no idea.
Cirlia didn't know if he meant he didn't know how he knew, or if he meant he didn't know if the plan would work at all, but she didn't have time to ask him, as he ran down the hall and waved his arms.
Over here!
He fired a shot at Prax's body, but the aura around it absorbed the shot, and it fizzled out. Cirlia slammed her fist on the wall and dashed up to the engineering station.
Does he have a death wish or something?
Lef stuck out his tongue at the Prax thing and darted into the cargo bay before a tendril of darkness could impale him. He dashed behind a crate and held his breath. Cirlia finished preparations and glanced down the hall, seeing the Prax thing enter the bay. She slammed her paw on the button, and the bulkhead shut tight. Lef heard it shut, and he hoped Prax couldn't sense him. The Prax thing stood for a moment, as if considering the shut door behind it. It didn't for long, and reached an arm out, shooting another tendril, blasting the nearest crate to smithereens. Right after, Lef could hear the hiss of air escaping into space, the temperature dropping, the pressure in his eyes beginning to hurt. He stumbled to his feet and cast his weakening gaze towards Prax. Lef didn't try to speak, despite wanting to taunt Prax, as he desperately held his breath against the rapidly dropping pressure. Prax was doing no better. He was grasping at his chest, watching Lef with bulging eyes. The entity inside Prax didn't seem to know what to do in this situation, but soon he passed out. But then an inky black thing pooled around Prax's head. Lef opened his mouth, and as the air rushed out of his lungs, he used it to yell so loud his vocal cords burned.
Now!
The pressure in the bay wasn't so low it would cause permanent damage, but Lef collapsed and clutched his neck in pain. Serlia, grasping the gun in her paws, opened the bulkhead and braced herself as the air rushed back into the bay quickly. She shook her head as the pressure normalized, shouldering the rifle and stepping inside.
Lef, are you all right?
Lef gasped for air and looked up at Serlia, the entity nowhere to be seen.
Where is it?
Serlia glanced around. All she could see was Prax's unconscious body. He was still breathing.
I don't... Ah!
From nowhere, a tendril whipped out and smacked Serlia across the chest, sending her flying back into the hall, slamming against the wall with an oof. Lef stumbled to his feet and lunged forward.
No, Serlia!
Lef stumbled to his feet and lunged forward. The thing snaked from under Prax, where it was hiding, and came towards Lef, forming into a roughly shaped ball. Lef grabbed a splinter from the ground and swung it around, pathetically.
Don't come any closer.
He swung at a tendril that was extending towards him, batting it away. 3 more took its place, grabbing Lef's arms and pinning him to the floor.
Hey, get off!
It lifted itself up and plopped itself right onto his head.
Don't you dare...
The feeling was not unlike burning by acid or thousands of tiny bug bites, but whatever it was, it hurt like hell. Lef struggled the best he could, his nerves on fire, but he slowly lost strength. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, a shadow fell over him.
Take this, you manipulative, parasitic bastard!
With a mighty swing, similar to how a golfer would swing, Prax dealt the entity a blow, using the rifle as a club. It flew a few feet and plopped onto the ground.
Shoot it!
Prax was an excellent shot, and he was able to hit dead center. However, he was unprepared for the recoil from the archaic firearm, and it almost knocked him over. The bullet seemed to do something to the entity, ripping a hole in its center and splattering inky substance on the back wall. It screamed and writhed in pain. It didn't die, however, and slithered towards them again. Lef and Prax backed for the door, Lef slapping Prax on the arm.
Shoot it again! It's semi-auto! Keep shooting!
This thing really hurts to shoot, you know.
He fired again, this time missing completely.
Ah! How did they fight wars with this thing?
They made it out of the bay, the entity having lost its speed from its injury.
Very well, apparently.
Prax fired again, this time grazing the edge of the thing, sending it spinning. Suddenly the bulkhead slammed shut again. Lef looked around and saw Serlia in the cockpit, once again venting the air from the bay, this time at a much faster rate. She clutched her chest and gasped as she spoke.
There. It'll make a nice new ring for this planet.
Lef and Prax ran to her side.
Are you alright?
No, you idiot! My left rib is broken.
Prax took her side and supported her before she could collapse.
Let's get you back to my ship. They'll have you good as new in no time.
Lef took her other side, and they wobbled, bruised and broken, towards Prax's shuttle. Hours later, after receiving the news, Lena, Zack, and Feldo docked their crammed fighter pod with Prax's ship. Lena nervously let go of the stick as the autopilot took over.
Do you have any idea what happened? It sounded serious.
Zack shrugged.
I don't know. Probably an accident.
The light above the hatch turned blue and the airlock opened. A short fox woman stepped forward and ushered them inside.
Hello. The captain told me to escort you to the sick bay. Right this way, please.
Lena matched her pace as they walked down the corridors of Prax's ship.
What happened?
The woman looked uncomfortable for a brief moment.
Well, I don't know. The captain wouldn't tell us, even after he defied orders and changed course.
They entered sickbay and crossed the room to 3 beds. Serlia was in a torso cast, Lef had an oxygen mask on, and Prax looked like he had the galaxy's largest hangover. Lena ran up to Lef and grabbed the chart by his bed.
Decompression? What happened?
Lef frowned, indicating the mask over his muzzle.
Oh.
Feldo sat by Serlia and tapped her arm, waking her from her light sleep.
What? Feldo! Hi.
He laughed.
Hi yourself. You had us worried for a while. What happened?
Celia hoped her sudden and inexplicable blush would be hidden by her fur.
Well, I don't exactly know. Something really, really weird.
Zack looked at the x-rays of Celia's chest that were on the wall.
Heh, broken rib, huh? You know humans have way more than 2 ribs.
Prax groaned.
Guys, please keep it down.
The doctor walked up to Lef and removed his mask.
I think that's enough. Take a deep breath and tell me how it feels.
Ooh, kinda nice.
The doctor nodded.
Good as new. You'll be out of here in a bit. Your friend will have to stay a while, though.
Lena took Lef's paw.
Tell me everything.
Lef sighed and started the story from the beginning, attempting to describe each experience in detail, but ultimately failing to convey them properly. When he finished the story, the gathered audience sat still. Lena's ears were down slightly, and her voice was quiet.
That's scary.
Zack huffed.
You don't say. Well, let's hope that something like this never happens again.
Lef, do you think your entity is gone?
Lef shook his head.
No, not at all. It's still there, I'm sure.
Her ears fell all the way, and Lef held onto her paw tighter.
No, don't worry, Peach. It won't let me come to any harm. That I'm sure of.
She nodded.
I hope you're right.
Feldo grinned at Celia.
Quick thinking there at the end.
She smiled back.
I just wanted to make sure it was dead.
He chuckled and patted her paw.
You'll be happy to know that I had a nice visit with Grant and Nan. Or Magenta's parents. It went well at first.
Celia lay back as Feldo told his story, admittedly less exciting than what she had just gone through. She briefly wondered what things would be like if circumstances were different. Maybe a vacation on Coron 4 wasn't such a good idea. A week later, Grant was sitting on his porch sipping tea and watching the sky. He heard someone approaching and opened one eye. A tall figure stepped up, his face masked by the glare from the sun.
Has a ship called the Frontier been here?
Grant was a little suspicious.
Who's asking?
A friend.
Grant sighed and shrugged.
I don't know.
The figure left so silently, Grant didn't notice he was gone until he looked up again. A fine dust was all that was left of the entity as it floated in orbit, frozen by the intense cold. Slowly, despite being solid, the bits floated together and formed a frozen ball of ice. It shrank slowly, reducing in size until it winked out of existence altogether.